Studies show that 92% of employees believe that presentation skills are critical to success at work. Yet, as much as 77% of the population has some level of anxiety and fear when speaking in front of an audience. These statistics show that roughly 3 out of 4 individuals admit to losing confidence when presenting in person or virtually. Let that sink in for a moment. What's your biggest challenge when presenting virtually? Comment to let us know. Being a career and confidence coach, it hit me hard when I heard these stats. I knew immediately that I needed to use my platform and my voice to give confidence to others in speaking and delivering presentations, especially in virtual meetings. If you want to give more memorable presentations with confidence in virtual meetings, then today's talk on how to present confidently in virtual meetings is for you. Hello and welcome to the Dare to Differentiate live show. Comment to let us know where you're tuning in from. The purpose of the show is to empower you to own your voice, value, and visibility with confidence, including your confidence when delivering presentations virtually. It will be a 1-hour event where I'll be chatting with my friend Lorraine K. Lee, editorial director at Prezi. We'll share our best advice in making a great impression in virtual meetings and presentations. Hello. I'm your host, Diana YK Chan, LinkedIn Top Voice, LinkedIn Learning Instructor on Presenting with Confidence course, and founder of My Market Ability. As a speaker and coach, my mission is to empower you to own your greatness with confidence, to shine, so that you stand out, get hired, and earn more. If we're not connected yet, make sure to follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Whether you're tuning in live or watching the replay, I am so delighted that you're here. So let me check in the comments to say hello. Who do we have here in the house? Who do we have here? All right. Hello, Adriana from Brampton, Kevin from Uganda, Michelle from France. Who am I from Greater Chicago area? Amazing. Orlando, Seattle. Hey, Ivan, great to see you again. Amazing. Welcome. We have a great audience. I know I'm featuring it live here on my profile on LinkedIn, and also Lorraine's also featuring hers on LinkedIn as well. So we have a great audience here so far. So here's what to expect for today's agenda. We're going to cover the common virtual meeting and presentation mistakes, how to set up your tech equipment for success, how to make a great impression in virtual meetings and presentations, how to overcome your nerves and speak with confidence, and how to build trust and rapport in virtual meetings. If you're excited to be here with us today, type in a +1. Okay, so some housekeeping reminders here. The replay will be available. You can watch on our LinkedIn, or you can also head over to my YouTube channel at Diana YK Chan, where I'll be adding some timestamps later on as well for easy viewing. I also want to encourage you to show your appreciation to our speakers. Type in like a hashtag Go Lorraine to encourage her. She's already backstage as well. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I want to introduce you to Lorraine K. Lee. So I met Lorraine a couple years ago, 2020. She reached out to me and see if I was interested in using Prezi for my virtual presentations, and I really love it. And since then, we've been supporting each other. Recently, I spoke for Prezi on presenting with confidence, and that was an amazing audience there. And so I decided to also invite her this time to come onto my live stream here to talk about how to present with confidence in virtual meetings. So let's bring Lorraine on the stage here.
Hi everyone.
Hey Lorraine, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me, and so cool to see your audiences from so many different places.
Yeah, we have such a great audience right now. So to kick things off, I want us to kick off with a good icebreaker question here is, I know you do a lot of virtual talks. Why don't you share with us, like, why are you so passionate about delivering keynotes on virtual presentations and meetings?
That's a really great question. And I think a lot of people, when they hear that I like to talk about that, I mean, you mentioned a bunch of stats at the beginning showing how, nerve-wracking and scary it can be sometimes. But, I really believe that both of these topics are just like so important to the business world. And I'm really passionate about helping professionals grow their careers, stand out in the virtual office in particular, since that's where many of us are now. And because a lot of people are still sticking to the status quo, they're sticking to the way that they've always done things. If you can push yourself a little bit and get better at virtual presenting, get better at meetings, you're just going to stand out so much and just really make an impact at wherever you're working.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you recently launched your course as well on
Mhm.
virtual and hybrid meeting essentials online. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about the course is about?
Yes, of course. So, Virtual and Hybrid Meeting Essentials, it's about a 30-minute course, so a very quick watch. But essentially, it's giving you kind of the framework for how to approach your virtual and hybrid meetings. And as I think many of us know, this is the way of the future in terms of the workplace. So, I talk about how to plan and prepare for meetings, how to actually engage people during meetings. And then, of course, the last piece is talking about presentations and how to make sure that your content is really standing out and wowing your audience.
Amazing, amazing. And I also want to share a little bit about my course as well that I
Mhm.
recently launched in May. It's called the Presenting with Confidence course. It's a nano learning course. So it's about a 30-minute course and bite-sized videos, about 2 minutes long, where I walk you through my entire confidence strategies with 3 tips and under each formula there. So feel free to check both of these courses out. It's both available on LinkedIn Learning there. So before we dive into questions, I would love to ask the audience here is, what are the common I want to ask the audience here, like, what are some of the common situations where you were hired to deliver virtual presentations? Is it, for example, like a town hall meeting, a sales pitch presentation, or you may be going for a case interview? What are some situations where you're required to give a virtual presentation? Lorraine and I would love to hear a little bit from the audience here of what type of presentations are you asked to deliver? Presentations there. So let us know. We're going to check in those comments later on there. Okay. So Lorraine, let's kick things off here.
Mhm.
What is your pre-presentation ritual?
So my ritual is I usually save at least 30 minutes, maybe an hour before going on. I need that time to kind of just center myself, put on makeup, just kind of get ready, get my clothes on and or for presenting, and I'll play some pump up music to kind of get the energy going, and then I have a checklist. So I'm looking at, are my lights on? Is my camera focused? Is my clicker working? How's my camera framing? Is the audio good? Making sure I'm connected to the Ethernet, and then yeah, and then just doing a little bit of a test run, usually just a short recording of myself just to see how I come across. But I think, yeah, pre-presentation rituals are important to kind of get in the zone.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to share with you a little bit of what, like, even what I did even today.
Yeah.
I'm really big on visualization. So one of the things I always do is I visualize my audience of picture like who is about to come to this talk here and what did
Yeah.
they care about? What are their pain points? What are their goals? So I really picture that and visualize that.
Hmm.
And I also love doing some affirmations. I'm really big on like affirmations on like I'm excited, I'm confident,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here to serve my audience here. So I do some of that. And then today, I did a few things to also open up my voice here because I was feeling my voice was a little scratchy here. So I did 15 minutes of stretching exercise that really helped me calm my body. And then I
Hmm.
did another 10 minutes of breathing meditation.
Hmm.
And then I also did some tapping around my face to open up my sinus as well, tap my entire body.
Yeah.
And I also did some humming in the shower
Those are
because
also good. Yeah.
my voice was not like this morning, so I knew I had to do something to get into the right state so that I could also speak
Yeah.
for like an hour period of time there. So it's one of those things that I tried to do there.
Yeah, I feel like you should make a LinkedIn, maybe another LinkedIn learning course. I feel like those are all such good tips, like when you're sick, how to present well.
Yeah, yeah. It's part of it's also getting in the right state of mind, right? Have to get
Yeah.
into the right state of mind there. So another thing I like to do here is I talk a lot about is nailing my opening as well. So especially if I'm owning or hosting something, I like to make sure my opening the first minute or two that I've nailed that. And
Yeah.
that way I feel like once I had that, everything just becomes much smoother there.
Yeah. That's a really good one.
Yeah, yeah. So let's check out what some audience here. Oh my goodness, we have over 100 people live here on both of our LinkedIn. Amazing. So we have, what do people use virtual presentations for? Chantel said career and job search webinars in post-secondary environment, project presentation, sales pitch presentations. Amazing. Okay, town halls, updates to leadership on current affairs.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty common. Management stakeholder quarterly reviews and audits. Yeah, new student orientation, health plan presentations. Amazing. Performance reviews. Great. So there's different varieties of when you would do presentations. For you, what type of presentations do you usually give, Lorraine?
A variety. I think it's usually updates, for example, to the marketing team. What have we been working on, for example, or actually in a few weeks, I'm going to be presenting to the whole company. We participated in a Gartner conference, and so I'll be presenting with a few of my colleagues, talking about why we participated and what the results were. So it really varies, but as you can see, all these people, everyone in the audience, they have so many different use cases, but so it's really important to nail knowing how to give presentations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's either hosting live streams or private webinars or private talks that I get invited to
Yeah, you do
there.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about what are the common virtual meeting and presentation mistakes?
So I'll start off with meetings first. I would say by far the number one mistake I see is just not being prepared. And when you're not prepared for a meeting, you're not getting as much done or what you want to get done during that meeting, which leads to more meetings. And that's what's leading to things like Zoom fatigue and just, our calendars just being filled with way too many meetings. And I think when we were in a remote setting, it made sense when we first shifted to that model. People wanted to have meetings to connect, to figure out what was going on. But now that we're used to that now, right? We need to start making some changes, improvements on the way that we've been doing meetings in order to actually be productive and to make sure that people are feeling like their time is being used well.
Yeah.
And then I
That's
think, on the presentation front, I would say, what comes to mind is around the content and not creating your content for a virtual world, meaning that you're just doing what you've always done. So maybe you are screen sharing or you're using a slide with a lot of bullets or a lot of text. Maybe you're, keeping your camera off. But I really think, and Diana, this presentations, if you want to stand out, they really need to be more like experiences and just something that's different. And the great thing is that in our virtual world we have so many tools that are available to us and things that we didn't have before in person. So adding more movement to your presentations, add more animations, gifs. I mean, I don't know if your audience can see here, these two stickers are moving ever so slightly, but it's something that probably, is going to catch your eye at some point. And then just making sure that you have the right tool set to be able to create, really great content.
Oh, I love that. I love that there. I'm going to take a different angle. Some of the common mistakes that I see, I would say, it's more from the first impression standpoint, is around the positioning of how you are situated in front of the camera. So my rule of thumb, and I think yours is similar, is around that, what do you call it? Arm's length from the computer, so that you can also see your top torso as well, that people can see you, because part of it's also seeing your hand gestures and body language to build trust and rapport there. So often I see sometimes people are very close to the camera, or if they're using a laptop where what's that word, where they're looking down on the camera there. So the other
too low,
so the other key thing is really putting it the eye level to the camera, and so that just makes you also more credible there. So I would say that's number one that I often see, and I feel like it's a very easy fix there. The other I would say is lighting. I feel like lighting can make a huge difference in terms of the look and feel of how one sees you there. What the most common one I see is when people are when there's not enough lighting, where their face is dark, you can't actually really see them.
Right. Or there's a window behind them, right?
There's
You
a
get
window
the
behind
backlit
them.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that would be my other common mistake I see. And the third one, I would say, it doesn't happen a lot, but I see it sometimes when it happens with guest speakers, is that if you're using a mic, a headset, you know those
Mm,
wired ones like that people use.
yeah.
If there's a lot of movement in your body, there tends to be some scratchy sound to it. I don't know if
I've
any of you
experienced
experienced
that.
that.
I did. Yeah. In a marketing meeting, actually. So thankfully it wasn't an external facing thing. And then my colleague was like, did you realize that there's a scratching sound? And I didn't. And so now I don't use those anymore.
Yeah. Any of you are aware of this? Like, have you ever heard of your own talks when you're wearing these wired headsets that if you do a movement, there is actually that scratchy sound? And this is like a quick fix. Either you switch headsets, right? You use a different headset, or you really try not to move when you're talking with those type of wired headsets there. Okay. Yes. Okay. So let's move on to the next question here.
Sure.
And feel free, by the way, the audience, if you have any questions for us, feel free to ask us questions as well. We're going to have time for questions to answer your questions down the road there. So our next question here to ask is how to set up your tech equipment for success.
That's a good one. There's a lot you can do. And I admit I'm not super techy, so I haven't, gone into every single option that exists in the world and figured out what the best thing is. But I created something called the T method, which Diana, I think you've seen before. And T stands for tech, energy, and aesthetics. So these are the first things that you should think about before getting on any video call. So I'll tackle the tech piece of that. So in terms of what I think is really essential for a presentation or a meeting, an external microphone, making sure you have really good audio. How many of us have been on video calls where the audio is kind of choppy and it's a pointless meeting, right? And it's super frustrating when you can't hear. So making sure you have clear sound is really important. You'll want an external webcam ideally. So audio and the webcam on our laptops are not so great. So just getting an external version of both of those is really good. I use the Logitech Brio, which works well for me. Making sure you have the right software. So for example, I'm using Prezi Video now. I also use something called Crisp, which helps block out background noise. Super great software I'd recommend checking out. And then making sure that you have the right hardware. So I use an Ethernet cable, and then you might also want to make sure that you have some sort of Wi-Fi extender or some sort of backup in case your internet or your Wi-Fi goes down.
Ooh, I love that. Can you mention that tool again in terms of minimizing the echo? What was that tool that you
Sure, yeah,
use?
it's called Crisp, KRISP. And they have a
Ah,
free version, and I think they give you like 250 free minutes or something like that per week. But then you can also get a paid plan, of course, and get unlimited. But I remember I had someone doing construction very close outside my window in my old apartment, and I would ask my coworkers, "Can you hear that?" And no one could hear it, so it works very well.
okay, good to know. I'm curious to
Yeah.
hear from the audience. Any of you use like the noise cancellation feature here? That's a great one there.
Mhm.
So I'm similar with some of the tech equipment. I think one thing I would add, maybe it's not tech related here, but I would say is the background there and setting up. So I
Yeah.
know I want to get your opinion on this, the difference between having your own background versus using like a virtual background. What's your take on this?
So my take, I get asked that a lot. My take is I don't like to use virtual backgrounds unless it's like a fun team activity and you're doing something a little sillier. Because I think virtually we are already, working our brains overtime, trying to trying to see the person's facial, micro expressions and just interpret what's going on in front of us, versus in person. That's why it's much easier to interact with someone in person. So when you add the virtual background, it causes just your brain to work in overdrive again, because I'm sure you've seen it, like hands are disappearing off the screen
Yeah.
and half your face goes away, or you kind of see someone popping in and out, and it's just very distracting. You're kind of trying to process everything that's going on. So I like to say, keep it in the physical world if you can. And I actually just made a LinkedIn post the other day, if anyone wants to check it out, detailing exactly all the pieces of my background, so that you can make a good impression with what you have in person.
I saw that post. You get questions on whether your background is your actual background
Yeah,
or not.
yeah, that's
That's the best
compliment.
compliment, right?
Yeah.
I love this. Like, if we can just dive into this a little further, I feel like, I mean, one of the rule of thumb I would say is to keep it simple. right?
Yeah.
To keep it simple,
Mhm.
start with like a white or clear wall there, and you can add a few things. Like in my case, like I add like a simple artwork here,
Yeah,
and add a
yeah, you're
few,
great.
like you say, plant or books, whatever that is that kind of feels like you as well. That feels like part of your own brand. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just something that showcases a little bit of who you are there.
Yeah, and I love your background too because I feel like the colors align with your brand. It just like all fits together. It's all very consistent and like you see that background, you're like, oh, that's Diana.
It's a curated background that
Yeah, yeah,
represents my brand.
exactly.
Now, for those of you don't have a background where it's facing the wall, what advice do you have for people? Like if they're not necessarily facing a wall and it could showcase like their entire, let's say, bedroom, for
Mhm.
example, what advice do you have for them there?
So I like to say, try to find either some sort of room divider, or I had a coworker who hung up a curtain behind him, and I think he was working
Mm,
from the kitchen. I thought that was quite a creative solution. So yeah, not all of us, have that perfect background, but I think maybe a room divider or just something that
yeah.
kind of separates and creates a little bit more of like an office space is the ideal.
I like that. The room divider is a great idea there. Fantastic. Amazing. That's great to hear. So, our next question here is how to make a great impression in virtual meetings and presentations.
Yes. So the T method I mentioned earlier, that's really, tech, energy, aesthetics. These are the three areas you want to focus on because there's a lot that you can do, right, on video. So start off with that. And so I covered the tech just now. And I think the energy is another really big one, both for meetings and presentations. Diana, you talked earlier about kind of nailing that beginning and the opening. And, the same can be said for video calls and meetings. So how you introduce yourself or how you kick off a call makes a huge difference. So Diana started off sharing stats, and that's already so different than what we hear every day. So you're kind of intrigued and you want to listen and hear what she has to say. In my team meetings, we might do things like play music to start it off, or instead of just asking, I actually made a post about this the other day too, asking how are you, or like what's the weather like over there. You just get a little bit more interesting with it. What was the highlight of your weekend, or what are you working on that you're really excited about? So just varying up the intro so it's not just kind of that autopilot mode of how are you, how's the weather over there?
Yeah, that's great. What I'm hearing is really connecting with people, right? Like really
Yeah,
building that trust and
yeah,
rapport. That is so important. So it's not just a surface level type of question, but really like
yeah, yeah.
checking in to see how people are doing. And I'm with you here too. Like I'm really big on energy. Like that's one of my key things. It's all about energy,
Mhm.
and to me, it's all about going back to showing warmth
Yeah.
where people feel like you are excited to be here, you
Mhm.
are enthusiastic as well, and that's key. And what studies have shown too, one of the books by Vanessa Van Edwards, she talks a lot about
Mhm.
charismatic communication, and it's
Mhm.
a balance between warmth and confidence.
Mhm.
And warmth tends to come first, which is really the facial expressions, eye
Yeah,
contact, your
yeah.
smile. Those are really important things. And I would add on is really around like posture. Having good posture is really key. I have seen some times where speakers where the difference between you're sitting up where you really want to be here versus just like leaning
Yeah,
back or
yeah,
tilted, like talking like
exactly, yeah.
this. Have you seen these before? Like we're
Oh,
just
yeah, yeah,
and the impression, if you are the speaker of
yeah,
that, what's that impression that we give to people when you're like
right,
this?
right. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you just look very, disinterested, you're not really in it, versus leaning
Mhm.
forward, like, having the smiling and the eye contact and all of that, yeah.
Really, yeah, and so this is where I'm getting at is really how we build trust and
Mhm.
rapport. That's really really important there. So that's key. So I love what you talked about the icebreaker type of questions. I think the other to make a great impression is using great visuals.
Yes.
Using great visuals is a great way to complement your talk. I
Mhm.
know when I deliver trainings, I use Prezi as well as my visuals
Yeah.
to add on to the story that I want to tell there.
Mhm. Yeah, oh, visuals are so key, and they're just such a good way to stand out and just to show that you did a little extra something to prepare, so would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing is I would add is studies have shown also stories are 22 times more memorable when it comes to
Mhm.
presentations. So whenever you
Yeah.
can tell a story is also a great way to connect with your audience. So I don't know, let's maybe do a little bit of storytelling here, Lorraine. I'm curious to hear from you in terms of your, I guess, your journey to becoming a speaker. What was your story around that? Like, I wanted to share as well how my journey becoming a speaker was not easy. I was actually very shy and
Yeah.
intimidated growing up as well. So, do you have a story to share there?
Yeah. So I guess it started off a few years ago after I joined Prezi. And there was this coworker I had, his name is Spencer, and he was doing a lot of virtual speaking. And I would watch him and I was like, wow, he looks so confident and put together and just, and I know public speaking is such an important skill, but a lot of people shy away from it because it is very nerve-wracking and it can be scary. And at the time I was coming up with my personal goals for Prezi, and ideally they, will tie to something about the business. And I said, I want to learn more about public speaking. I want to get better at it. I should be, because I work at Prezi, which is, known for presentations. So I asked Spencer, I said, would you be willing to mentor me and kind of review, speaking things that I do? And he said he would be happy to. And so I just started off reaching out to people I knew who might have opportunities. I went on their shows or their conferences and whatnot, and would send Spencer the recording. He would review them. And over time, I would just, keep working on it, keep improving. And then eventually people started reaching out to me after they would see me speaking. And that was super exciting and very rewarding. And then now I'm here, I've gotten so many opportunities from it, like the LinkedIn Learning course. I'm doing a cohort-based course. So again, like that's why I'm so passionate about speaking. Regardless of the topic that you're talking about, it really can open the door and just lead to so many opportunities that you would never have thought of.
I love that. I'm curious to hear from the audience. Any of you interested in doing more speaking or presenting, or if you want to become like a speaker there, let us know. So a little bit about my story, my journey. I would say for me, growing up, I was always a bit shy and felt intimidated to speak up. And the part of it's part of the cultural upbringing. And in fact, in university, I had the softest voice in class. My classmate oftentimes would repeat what I had to say. But because I knew I had a dream that I wanted to become a speaker, this was something I decided to work on. So in university, I was already taking Toastmasters, taking class on
Great,
presentation
yeah.
skills, speaking skills, continue to fine tune that. And I remember at work, I would often memorize my notes where I didn't really sound authentic at all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until the last few years where I started doing a lot more talks, where I really decided to own my own voice, my own style, and my uniqueness, that really where I became more confident in speaking. And one of my philosophies is all about speaking from your heart instead of your head. Because when you're speaking from your heart, that's when you come across as more authentic, more
Mhm.
relatable as well, versus trying to just lecture someone there.
Right. Yeah, I've heard you talk about this, and it's such good advice. It really is. And yeah, I hope other people are taking it to heart when they speak. And yeah, I'm glad that you found that works for you.
Yeah, yes. So let's move on to the next question here. Oh, this is a good one. How to overcome your nerves.
Um, that is a good one. I think that's like the $1 million question when it comes to public speaking. So we talked about visuals a little bit just now, and so I would actually say that is one way that helps me overcome my nerves, because I know even if my delivery is not the best and the content is not the best, if I have really good visuals, people will call it out. And using Prezi Video, people are always like, "Wow, what are you using? How are you doing that?" So just knowing that I have that as like something to fall back on actually makes me feel less nervous. But of course, I like to think also the presentation itself is good and the content is good. So all of those things, if you can get that right together, just it becomes your superpower. Then I would also say practicing, of course. I've heard you should practice at least 10 times to get really comfortable with the material. And you might also want to practice, let's say it was 1 hour for every 1 minute of presentation. So if you have a 20-minute presentation, practice 20 hours. Not all of us maybe have time for that, but if you can do that, you're definitely going to feel so much more prepared and confident. And it really is about that preparation piece and not waiting to the last minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would argue too, just from my experience, what I see as a coach as well, people tend to spend a lot of time on the content creation piece, on preparing for that content, but not necessarily on the delivery and practice a
Mm,
piece. They tend to wait till the very last minute. So if you
yeah.
can actually buffer extra time to
Yeah.
practice, rehearse, or visualize it, it would really make a difference there. To add on to that, going back to what I said earlier, was I'm really big on positive affirmations and visualizing success. So really imagine yourself that you've already delivered a successful presentation. And by doing that, you're going to just feel more calm and excited because you feel like you've already delivered that talk before there. So doing that would be really helpful. On top of, I think, practicing, I think one of the things that I find really helpful for me is listening back to my talks from the past
Yeah. Yeah.
and look for ways of how I can improve. And that will help also build my confidence as I move forward there.
Yeah. And, I always, after I do a presentation or a keynote, I think, there are times where I think to myself, oh, I really messed that up, or I was kind of awkward at this moment. And then you watch yourself back and you're like, oh, actually, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like I thought it was. And so I think we're always our own worst critics. And if you can
Yeah.
watch yourself, like you said, and you're like, wow, I'm actually pretty good. Like that's a nice confidence boost. And you can, you'll keep building on that as you present.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to hear from the audience, like what gives you, like what makes you nervous for a presentation? Like what happens there? Like I know from experience, I want to share this with you because I also help a lot of clients to prepare for interviews and
Mm,
particular case presentation interviews.
yeah.
And I have to tell you, like I have a lot of clients where they can prepare the analysis of the presentation, but when it actually comes to the presentation itself, the delivery, it's
Hmm.
very nerve-wracking. And I think it's got to do that feels like there's a lot at stake.
Mm,
There's just a lot at stake. And so what happens, like when you're nervous, when you feel nervous, it's really hard for you to showcase your best self. I think it's okay to be nervous, but how do you really manage your nerves or control your nerves is what matters there,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So simple things like in terms of overcoming nerves, let's say nailing your introduction, right?
Hmm.
Or how do you want to build trust and rapport with the people that you are about to meet there, right? That
Hmm.
instant connection where they just feel connected to you. Um, or really setting the intention of what do you want people to walk away from today's presentation, right? So just feeling more grounded and centered will help you overcome those nerves there. I think another one is oftentimes when we think that, it's about us, but really it's about serving your audience.
Hmm.
I think that's something I had to overcome, right? It's not just about you, but it's about how
Yeah.
can I best serve the audience? And
Yeah.
when you think it from that perspective, you're going to want to give out your best energy and content and delivery to your audience there.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think also, related to that is just reframing your nerves. I think our body, the way
Mm,
we react to nerves and excitement is quite similar. And so if you can think, okay, I'm excited, I'm going to be helping, this person learn this, or I'm going to be, you know, just showing off like all my research and all the hard work I put in, and this is going to really help the company. And just reframing that and kind of rechanneling the nerves into something positive, I think, is another way to approach it.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move on. Like, I want to hear from the audience here as well. What are you learning so far? Let us know. We covered about half of our questions here. What are you learning so far? We'll love to hear from you. And I just want to check whether comments from LinkedIn is coming through. If you're there, type in a +1. I think I saw a few, but wasn't sure if LinkedIn comments are coming through here. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yes. Let us know. What are you learning so far? So my next question here, Lorraine, is how to speak with confidence.
Mhm. So for me, it's a few things. The first one, actually, it's very simple. It's just to smile. I feel like you and I both do a lot of that, Diana, and it makes a difference. Imagine if I was just like on this LinkedIn Live and I was just talking like this the whole time, and I'm just like nervous and I'm just unsure of myself, and it just doesn't give a good energy. People in the audience probably are like, "What's going on with her? Is she okay?" But when you can smile, you're showing that you're really excited about the topic that you're speaking on. It is infectious. Smiles are contagious, and so I think that's just a really great way to just you can kind of fake it till you make it with a smile, and it just like brings up the energy and just shows that you're excited about what you're speaking on. And then the second thing, which is what I'm doing now, is standing up. So Diana alluded to the importance of postures before. So I like to stand up Sitting down is fine too, but just make sure you're kind of sitting, straight and maybe scoot up on the front half of your chair, not slumped, leaning back. And then the third thing I would say is getting rid of filler words. And that one is a harder one to do, but a really good trick that I learned from my colleague Spencer, who I mentioned earlier when I was talking about my public speaking journey, is to speak a little bit more loudly than you're comfortable with. So maybe 25% more loudly. And when you can do that, it becomes a lot harder to have filler words sneak in, because when you imagine saying the word or like or loudly, it's not natural. So just raising your voice is going to help with that and just make you appear make you more confident, and just also make you just look better to your audience.
Oh, I love that. Those are some great tips. Projecting your voice, that's a great
Yeah.
way. I have to tell you, I've been working on my filler words as well. That's something I
Hard,
pay
yeah.
attention to when I look at my recordings.
Yeah.
I tend to say as well quite a bit, and so I need to remind myself to drop those other. Yeah, that's a great one. So I would add on a few things for me to speak with confidence. I definitely would say know your narrative and key messages, right?
Yeah.
Outline your thoughts, use a framework and guiding words. I find that it's really helpful. Like when you have a structure of what you want to tell or present, it's going to really help the audience follow. I'm really big on using a framework. For example, like I use in my presenting confidence course, like a confidence formula,
Yeah.
or using like guiding words such as first, second, and third. That
Yeah.
makes it easier for people to take notes there. The second is really getting to the point, really bottom lining your message where you are clear, concise, and compelling.
Yeah.
I would say this is a really hard one from my experience as a coach working with a lot of clients, especially in interview coaching as well. When we lack confidence, we feel like we need to over explain ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll talk more and more. We may ramble there. So the key here is less is more. Less is better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then lastly, the third one here is really the confidence in your body language and tone of voice. Studies show that 93% of your message and impact is based on your body language and tone of voice. Only 7% is based on words, which is why, Lorraine and I have been talking here about really either projecting your voice or even amplifying your energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that people can really feel you there.
Yeah. And I would add too on the energy piece, that you probably need more energy than you think on video, just because video, it's kind of a filter and mutes things down a little bit. So, as much energy as you think you need, try to amp it up just a little bit more to
A
really
little
kind of
bit.
have that
Yeah.
breakthrough the camera.
Yeah. I want to play a little devil's advocate here because I did a talk recently for a group here, for a group of women in a very male dominated industry. And one of the questions they had was that they feel that when they smile in a presentation, that they're not taken as seriously. What's your take on that? They feel that they won't be respected.
I can see where they're coming from. I think it's about maybe being strategic with your smile. So it's not like I'm smiling the whole time and, this is a not serious thing, but I think smiling is important to connect. And like you said before with Vanessa, the charisma, warmth, and competence, you need some of that warmth and you also need some of the competence. So smile and maybe also have a presentation that's supported by data and other things that, will support the competence side. But if, the situation calls for more competence, yeah, maybe you smile a little bit less. If it's an audience that needs more warmth, then you smile more.
Yeah,
What do you think? I'm curious.
To me, I agree. I do believe you have to have a balance of warmth and confidence. And to me, it's also going back to the range, right? In terms of understanding the environment, the audience that you're with there. I don't think that we need to where you're completely not smile, right? We can have like a smile of different range as well in terms of energy. I think that where I'm getting at is I feel like where the question was also coming from is like, can you be yourself when you're speaking and presenting? Do you get to be yourself, or do you feel like you can't be yourself because you feel like you're not being taken seriously there?
I think it's best to be yourself. And you
Yeah.
might have, like you said, like varying degrees, like, oh, this is my more serious self, or this is my more fun self. But that's the way that you're going to connect with people and come across as genuine. And people are going to want to listen to you. If you sound like a robot or you feel uncomfortable the way you're presenting, it's just going to cause a whole other slew of issues. You're not going to maybe feel as confident or come across as confident. Maybe you're not going to remember, what you need to say because you're trying to say it in a certain way that's not natural to you. So yeah, I think just be yourself.
Be yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. They're amazing. So I want to hear from the audience. What questions do you have for us? We have one more question here, and I want to check in the questions that you have for us to answer in the last 15 or 20 minutes or so. Feel free to start typing in your questions for us to answer here. So, Lorraine, my next question is how to build trust and rapport in virtual meetings.
Yeah, such a good question. So trust is so important, and I'm glad you're asking this question because I'm always saying how trust is kind of that key ingredient you need to get anything done, especially in a remote office, because you're not having that day-to-day face interaction where you can build trust up a lot more quickly. So for me, I have a journalism background, so I think this is sort of linked to that. But deadlines are one of the main things that I think build trust. I take them super seriously. They're really important to me. I think they're very important to help move work along and also to build that trust. And the way that it builds trust is because you are relying on your colleagues to get things done when they say they will. If they don't, it's going to break trust. If they do, it builds trust because you know that they're someone reliable. And so I think the combination of deadlines plus communication is really key for that. So for example, you can't hit the deadline, that's fine. Just make sure you're communicating, letting your colleague know, oh, I'm not going to be able to make that because something else came up. Does it still work if I kind of, turn this in on this date? And usually for me, it's fine. But I think, yeah, just being able to have the deadlines and also communicate is key. And I think organizations are often missing both or one of them.
That's a good one. I like that about meeting the deadline to build trust there. I'm going to take a different angle about building trust and rapport in a presentation setting, especially when you don't see an audience. How do you also build that trust when you don't see them out there? And
Yeah.
so for me, I would say number one is really around being authenticity and being relatable. Going back to speaking from your heart instead of your head. I think that would be really number one there. So telling stories, telling your own journey, those are all great things to talk about there. Number two is really being more conversational and engaging with the audience. So asking questions, acknowledging people, those are a great way to connect with the audience. Like I know when I do a lot of private webinars, when I have an audience, I do more like a workshop setting where I'm really asking them questions and really going through their comments, acknowledging them. So it's like we're having a two-way conversation there. And in fact, studies have actually shown that a two-way type of conversation is much more effective than a one-way presentation. It's actually here 64% of people believe that two-way presentation is more engaging, more memorable, and more persuasive than a linear presentation there. And so maybe perhaps we can dive into that next around really how to build engagement, because I saw one of my posts I did earlier was how lack of engagement was actually some of the people's biggest challenge. How do I really engage with the audience there? And then lastly is really around that being credible and knowledgeable, right? Part of building trust is you want to showcase that you know what you're talking about, that you understand what your audience needs and goals are, and that you are tailoring your talk to this particular audience as well. Right? I think even in virtual meetings, you may have the same talk, but depending who your stakeholders are, you may need to tweak your messaging or priorities accordingly there.
Yeah, that's a great call out. So like for an all hands, for example, if we're using certain jargon from the marketing side, like you need to tweak that. You need to explain, maybe over explain, but in a marketing meeting, giving a marketing presentation, that's going to be a little bit clearer. So yeah, always keep in mind who your audience is.
Yeah, amazing. What are some of your maybe favorite ways in engaging with an audience? What are some questions that you tend to like to ask?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the content of the presentation is. So if I take, so I have a keynote about how to stand out on video and beat Zoom fatigue. And so throughout that presentation, I will do things like, okay, let's check your camera framing now. here are some power words you can use. Which ones are you most interested in? I use virtual collaboration tools like Slido, so people can do things like ask questions in there, upvote, downvote. There are polls, word clouds, so that adds some interactivity as well. And I think it's an important thing to note that this audience engagement, not only does it help them stay more focused, but it's really important to create state changes. So essentially what that
Mm,
means is it's not me talking the whole time, and then it's very easy to kind of tune me out because they're used to hearing the same thing. You have to kind of break up attention and get people, changing it up for them to keep focused, because especially over video, you just need to, again, work a little bit harder to keep people's attention. And so doing things like that is also really beneficial for presentations.
yeah, I like that. I like that you mentioned those tools as well to help with the
Mhm.
engagement there. Yeah, that's a great tool. I'm curious to hear from the audience, like what other tools you may use to engage with your audience there. This was fantastic. I love this. One of my, for me, in terms of engaging with the audience, I love asking questions. I think this is part of me being a
Mm.
coach.
Yeah.
Oh, there. I love asking questions. It could be the icebreaker question. Where are you tuning in from? What are you excited about? I would ask a hack that I learned from another friend who is also a trainer here is like, if this resonates, type in a +1, or if you're still
Yeah,
here,
I love that
type in
one.
a +1. It's a very simple way to see if your audience is still here there. And then at the end, asking questions like, what's your biggest takeaway from
Mhm. Yeah.
today's talk here? And what's one word to describe how you're feeling?
Mhm.
And so you're ending a bit on a high note there.
Yeah, I like those questions.
Yeah. Let me see. What are some of the comments that are coming in here that we could feature? I saw someone, I think from your skill act. Oh, I couldn't watch because of kids, but there will be a recording there. Um, did we mention about virtual backgrounds? Yes, we did talk about virtual backgrounds. I think both of us like agree that it's better to have your own background versus a virtual background there. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions here? Lorene, I want to ask you because you created your course as well, and I created
Mhm.
my course. What were some of
Yeah.
your biggest lessons learned in creating a course? Like that's part of presentations as well. Like what
Mhm.
were some of the challenges and what were some of your lessons learned?
I think the energy was a big one. I
Mm.
thought I was being energetic, and then my producer kept giving me the feedback, go even bigger, go do what you think is crazy and just so out there. And then, I would do it, and then he goes, yeah, keep that. And so you really, that's a video course. This is on, virtual, talking about virtual presentations, that's on video. And so that energy piece is really, really huge. You need
Oh
more than
wow.
you.
So you had to re-record it then, right? Because of the feedback to re-record to bring up more of that energy.
We were just doing it as we were
Yeah.
going. So it was like the
Yeah.
remote studio option. But yeah, I would do a clip and they're like, this is good. We could use it, but try even more. And then they were like, okay, let's keep this clip, this new one.
I love that reminder. Like this goes back to really amplifying our
Yeah.
energy. You may feel that you're sound crazy, but
Yeah.
really it's probably what the audience needs to
That's
feel that
exactly what they need.
energy
Yeah.
in you, right? The
Yeah.
energy. I love that. So for me, because I created a nano learning course that was recorded from my phone,
Right. Yeah.
and each video was supposed to be only about 2 to 3 minutes max long. My biggest challenge was being brief and concise
Mm.
because I'm so used to doing hour-long talks and trainings. And so how do I get my message across in each video in 2 minutes? And so that was my biggest challenge. So what I had to do was really think of like, what's my key message? What are my key
Mm.
practical tips? What are the key
Mhm.
stats or the key stories I want to have there? And I mapped out the script for that as well. So that way I can really make sure it was about the 2 minute mark. And
Mhm.
then the other challenge I have to say was that I feel doing a live stream is so much easier than doing a pre-recorded course there. I did over
Yeah.
100 takes with my
Yeah.
dozen videos. It was over 100 takes, and part of it's like energy or posture or my sound
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all those things that we had to work on. So there were so many things when I think about presentations and really connecting with your
Mhm.
audience.
Yeah, that's a tough one to keep it brief. I'm actually working on a nano course as well right now on effective hybrid meetings, and I'm definitely going to script it out just again to measure the length. And I think that's a good suggestion as well for longer presentations. I'm all about scripting out. Ideally, the points that you want to say, don't memorize it, but script it out, and that can help kind of guide you. So you're not always having to rethink what you want to say in that moment.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I find that by doing that, by having that guide, it also gives you where it helps you stay focused, but also gives you the freedom to go into different direction as well, because you
Yeah.
already hit your key points there. Yeah. So we have a question here. Is tips on trying to take meeting notes while running the meeting and addressing questions?
I would say don't try to do all those things if you can. Ideally, you have selected a note taker from the group, rotate that person each time if it's a regular team meeting. But being a good meeting facilitator is a lot more work than what many of us are used to. So it sounds like you are being very thoughtful about it and trying to make sure that all the different pieces are moving. And that's great that you have that you want to take notes. So I would say try to split up the responsibilities a bit, have a facilitator, maybe even a moderator separately if you'd like, and then definitely a facilitator and a note taker. I think is two separate roles.
Yeah. Yeah, because you want to stay focused at the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
you need to, yeah, as you facilitate, like you want to get people engaged and have them, involved in the meeting. And so to do that, plus typing notes at once, that's a lot to focus on.
yeah, for sure. I agree with that. All right. Let's see. Any more questions? Okay. Someone said, late to this. I have poor lighting. Any suggestions? Okay. We could talk about a bit more lighting
Sure.
again, because I don't think
Yeah.
we talked about positioning, right? We talked a bit of lighting there. So I'll take a stab at this. So for me, I have a ring light in front of me right now, which is the top. And then I have two LED lights, which is about 45-degree angle there. And because I wear glasses, I need to make sure that the ring light, it's not reflecting
Right.
in the
Yeah.
glare in my glasses. So if I could do a little higher, you guys can see that.
Yeah.
But it's much higher there, so you don't see it as much. So that has worked really well for me. I just got these LED lights and I had to get a diffuser because without it,
Mhm.
the glare was showing in my glasses.
Yeah.
So that's my tip there. I can do a quick demo because mine are remote controlled. If I turn it off, do you notice the difference of lighting right now?
Yeah, I know.
I just
Yeah.
notice a difference without the
Yeah.
lighting. This is just a natural light in my office with some LED lights in the ceiling there. All right, so that's without the lighting. And this is why I say when you have the lighting, it looks a bit more polished. Your camera looks like a little bit more higher quality there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason, all the YouTubers and TikTokers will have the light in front of them when they're recording. It makes the video look so much better.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add about lighting, the positioning?
Yeah, well, I have a soft box in front of me and then two ring lights on the side. And so I think a soft box probably similar to Diana's LED lights. Those are a little bit more powerful than ring lights, and they have a diffuser. I would say when you're buying lights, try to get lights that have multiple temperature colors
Mm-hmm.
because depending on the time of day, your makeup, etc., you might need those different colors. So I'm on like the warm tone right now, but I also have white and cold. So I switch between them depending on time of day. So would recommend just having those options.
I like that, like the warm and cold, and also the brightness as
Yeah,
well. Yes.
brightness. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
depending on the time of day. If you really can't get the lights, I mean, the best is also getting the natural light from a window,
Yes.
facing the window. My challenge for me is I actually have three big windows, and
Mhm.
actually right now I have a noise cancellation board in front of me because if I don't have it, the glare of the brightness of the windows will go into my glasses. So
Oh,
that's something also to
yeah.
test out depending on what direction you face in your house as well. So for me, I knew I needed that there. Like I extremely recently, just to give you an idea, I invested in I tinted my windows.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I tinted my windows because one, it was to reduce heat. It was getting really hot here in my office. Like I was
Yeah.
just sweating a lot. It's been like
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
like this. And then second was also the glare issue. So I invested in tinted windows, and it made a huge difference
Interesting.
in how I feel, but also the lighting dynamics in the room as well.
Yeah, yeah. You have a full-fledged studio over there, Diana. Windows. I haven't heard of that one yet.
Yeah, I wish I knew about this years ago, but you know what they
Yeah.
do to cars, right? The tinted windows?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It reduces heat, reduce glare. It also protects the furniture as well too. So these are things that I wish I
That's
knew
my purpose.
earlier.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Um, what's another question here? We're going to be wrapping up here soon. Is can you tell me about dressing in virtual meetings? That's a good question here. So attire.
I'm pretty casual, but that's also because Prezi is a more casual culture. For something like this on a, Diana show, or if I'm doing a keynote, try to stick with jewel tone colors. Those are really going to help you pop. A lot of us have, white backgrounds, so something with color. Try to avoid patterns. Definitely not stripes. You'll notice if you test it next time on camera, they start moving. It's a very
Yeah.
strange thing. And then just, yeah, try not to, whatever color you have in the background, just try not to wear something that will have you kind of blend into the background. You want to pop and stand out.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I have to tell you, I love pattern clothes. Since doing virtual
Yeah.
presentations, I had to completely change my wardrobe.
Yeah.
Like completely, because I knew solid colors would be better. So
Yeah.
I had to get more solid colors, like you said, like my favorite blue or the whites or
Yeah.
the jewel
Yeah.
tones or neutral colors, to look good on camera there. So that's a great question there. Ivan has a question. Can both of you take a picture of your setup from your point of view? We should post that. I think my assistant Jan showed at my office setup of a sneak peek of our office. I can definitely post a picture of my setup here as well of what it's like there.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
pictures as well. As I mentioned, I just the other day, coincidentally, I posted a picture of the background, but I was thinking I should post a picture of what's in front as well. So just
What's in
follow
front?
me, connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll see that hopefully soon.
Yeah, I should do that as well. I have to tell you a little hack. I don't think I shared with people here. So one thing I talk a lot about is eye contact at the camera.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people actually, a mistake is they make is they don't look at the camera when they're talking. And so a simple hack to get around that, what I do is I put pictures of my kids behind the camera.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's an audience there, reminds me to look at the camera, reminds me to smile because they're smiling.
Yeah. Love that one. Yeah, it makes such a difference. I mean, as I have been looking at you speaking, and I'm like, oh, Diana's talking right to me versus Diana's talking off to the side looking at something. So it really makes a difference.
Yeah, it makes a difference. And that's something to keep in mind when you are the presenters that are looking at the camera to speak. Awesome. Okay. Anything else? Links to Amazon maybe on good light rings. Oh, I mean, you know what? Do a search. There's so many there, to be honest. I think there you can do a search. There's so many ring lights that are, if you do look some of the reviews, you'll be able to find them, I would say.
Yeah, I think search, yeah, they're all, there's so many, like Diana said. I would just add, try to find ones that are at least 12 inches to 16 inches in diameter to get that big size. And then again, find the ones that have that multiple temperature color range and adjust brightness as well. And I think there's so many, like, yeah,
there's so many.
Qualifications.
I'll share later on the ones that I just invested in, like the LED ones. They are a bit more expensive. Like if you plan on going more pro and you want like the remote control feature, it certainly helps there. I'll share that in the post later on too there. Amazing. Well, so I want to ask the audience here, like, what's your biggest takeaway? Lauren and I shared a lot of gems today. What is your biggest takeaway from today's talk here? What are some things that you're going to start doing as a result of what you learned today? Is it upgrading your lighting, upgrading your camera, nailing your opening? What is it? Tell us what are some of your biggest takeaways here from today's talk. This was so fun, Lorraine.
I know. It's always so fun chatting with you. And I think, when was our last one? It was last year, right? The last time
you were on my Amplifying Asian Voices series. You were the first speaker.
Last May, yeah.
You were my first speaker, and now a year later, you're back on my show again.
Love it.
Yeah. So let's see, what are some comments coming in? Peter says, speak louder to avoid filler words. Amazing. practicing. Speak directly to the camera is so important. Yes. Awesome. Amazing. Amazing. And what's one word to describe how you're feeling as a result of this talk here? Let us know. This was so fun. I love that you also featured it on your LinkedIn today, Lorraine.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for introducing me to that. I did not know that was possible, but I'm excited to see the results as well. Hopefully, people tune in.
Yeah, we had a great audience from your profile today. So that was great in terms of collaborating with each other there. Amazing, amazing. Let me see what other comments are coming in before we end this live here. I know it takes a little while for it to come through. Lorraine, I know, like, you know, big part of my show is around career. What's your final advice on advancing your career? What can one start doing now?
I think that the one that comes to mind is to ask for feedback. That's been on my mind lately. Being able to ask and give feedback. And I think being able to ask feedback, to be able to take it, you know, gracefully and listen and not get defensive. That's such an important soft skill that I think is very underrated, but it really goes a long way. And then when you ask for feedback, make sure that you're getting really specific with what you're asking about. Not just, you know, what did I do well today? Instead, you know, I'm working on my public speaking. How did you think I came across in terms of, you know, how confident I was? Or I'm trying to get better at facilitating meetings on a scale of 1 to 5. You know, how well do you think I engage the audience? So just asking those really specific questions and being open to changing and improving, I think, is one of the best things you can do to grow your career.
I love that. That's such great advice, asking for feedback. And this ties in really well with this talk as well, of getting feedback of your presentations.
Yeah.
And I would,
yeah.
yeah. And I would add on to this on this topic is really to stretch out of your comfort zone. Right? Be willing to try new things, whether it's trying out a new platform, new technology, new way of delivering your talk, your presentation. Be willing to try things out and experiment. Like, I have to tell you, one of my recent new things, Lorraine, was creating TikTok videos.
Okay. I still haven't gone on TikTok. I feel like I'm not going to understand what's going on.
and Instagram reels. I thought I had it figured out, where I create videos all the time, but I have to tell you, like, creating 15-second, 30-second is a totally other skill set, I have to tell you. So that was me stretching out of my comfort zone recently when I also did a co-webinar with Tiffany Uman on personal branding. I thought I would have fun because she's very active on Instagram and TikTok. And so I thought I would experiment it. And so that's my advice, is to really stretch out of your comfort zone. Like, if you want to get better, you got to try out new things as well and be curious there.
Yeah. And you do such a good job of it. I mean, that's how we got introduced, right? You were up for trying Prezi, and now we're just collaborating all the time. And it's just, I think you're such a good example of that.
Amazing. When having fun with it, right? Awesome. So as I see here, the key learning, everything we spoke about, being very helpful. Confidence. All right. That's amazing. Well, thank you everyone for joining us live. We're so glad that you were here with us today. Thank you so much as well. If you want to connect with Lorraine, feel free to follow her on LinkedIn or follow me. You see link, you see Lorraine's website here, laurenklee.com/learn, where you can also subscribe to her list to get some tips on virtual presentations and meetings there. Okay, amazing, awesome. What else do I have here? Okay, I guess to wrap up here, for those who want to follow me, I have another talk coming up end of July 28th, on how to bounce back from a layoff and own your career gap. I'll be speaking with Sweta Rajmi on July 28th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So feel free to follow me to stay connected to find out about that talk there. Okay. Amazing. Okay. And then the other thing is that if you want to watch the replay, feel free to check out the replay on my YouTube channel, where I'll be adding timestamps later on as well. All right. Well, thank you so much today, Lorraine. So delighted to chat with you today.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for attending.
Amazing. All right. You take care. Bye all.
Bye.